But it's not to say like you can't go and still do, some static stretching at the end of our workout. But we're gonna find ways that we can actually, get the mobility and the flexibility during our workout as well, which is really cool. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Deskbound Therapy podcast. I'm your host, David London, and this show is all about helping you improve your health, fitness, posture, and mobility so you can lift and train pain-free. I'm super excited for this episode. I'm back with my co-host, Pierce Ginzberg. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the biggest mistakes I made with my mobility, actually the top five when I started, lifting and training hard, and just kind of tell you a little bit, guys, about, some of the things I did that I messed up and some tips you can watch out for. So really excited to have you back here, Pierce.
Pleasure, David. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to just have this conversation, because I think it's important, whether you're that beginner who is looking for immediate results or that individual who's on that advanced level and really looking to change things up. There's got to be a good mid ground. And I think that there's always time to talk about mistakes that people are making so that you can correct yourself, identify those things, and at the same time, really level up your knowledge base.
Yeah,
And
it's interesting because I remember back in the day when we were once working out at your place, or I was just like, I think my shoulder was tweaked in it, but I was just like, I kept pushing myself because I really didn't. Well, partially because I didn't know better, but partially because like I just wanted to push myself. So it's interesting how you evolve over the years as you learn more about training and mobility.
Oh, without a doubt. When it comes down to it, people are always wanting to get into that go, go, go mindset, but it's not always the best course of action because you always have to listen to the body. And I think you're one of those individuals who really puts an emphasis on how you can alleviate your friction that you're having within the actual workout itself and also extend that into your lifestyle. And I think that is so important. So, without further ado, I think, one of the things that I wanted to touch upon were what exactly were your top five biggest mistakes that you were making while working out, and how could you, attribute those down into bite-sized chunks that people can really utilize on a daily basis?
It's interesting because I felt like when I first started powerlifting and lifting in general, I felt like so tied to my goals that I was willing to, achieve them at any cost. But I didn't realize that that cost would be my first, shoulder injury during, a bench press competition, or I didn't realize that would be, chronic patellar tendonitis. Like I wanted my goals so bad that sometimes I neglected like the little things like, you know, doing mobility to actually warm up instead of just throwing weight on the bar. Like I realized through my injuries, like you can't just slap a bunch of weights around. You can't just go right into your workouts. Like I realized like this was probably why I was getting injured, but you got to actually do proper mobility warm-ups because the muscles warm up, but we have to realize like it takes time to get, blood and nutrition and all these nutrients to our joint capsules to get them moving better. So it's not just, swinging your arms around like we used to think, or like runners just kicking their hamstring back and forth. But I've realized that you actually have to, do mobility that's going to enhance your performance for the lift you're doing. And that's also ultimately, mobility doesn't need to be, some things that aren't tailored to your goals. Like I realized that, looking back, I probably just did a lot of foam rolling. That's why I was injured all the time. But I realized like it has to be something that can also prevent injury. So it can be have some sort of prehab component. So something that you would do to prevent injuries, or when you are injured, it's got to be something that you can incorporate into your mobility. Because that way, we're really making sure as you're getting stronger, you're still, keeping up with those weak points.
Yeah, without a doubt. When it comes down to mobility functions, I think there's definitely a lot that goes into the prep. And when it comes down to it, there's that consistency that's involved with that prep as well as the workout itself. Because people just don't realize that the body can be utilized in a way to, one, increase its flexibility, two, to be able to actually increase performance, and three, to also just increase everyday functionality. I think that's where people are led astray because they're trying to specifically target one of those things rather than all three, which are definitely important in the consistency of your training. And, in terms of yourself, where do you find that sweet spot in the amount of time that you're working out?
I find it interesting, as you mentioned, like it has to be something that's part of our lifestyle. Because I find when people first start working out, like we have a certain goal, whether it be, to lose weight, build muscle, look a bit more jacked, or to just, do powerlifting and really push up those numbers. But I feel like we forget to look at the fact that we also want our bodies to move well in everyday life. And if we're just doing, powerlifting and we're not doing any cardio or mobility, then our bodies are only going to be good at the squat, the bench, and the deadlift. And when we go to bend down, play with our kids, or to to pick up your dog, like that's when injuries happen. It's because we're not training those positions. Like I feel like a lot of people focus so much on their performance in the gym, which is great and it's good to make progress, and I love making progress, but I think we neglect that we can look at different ways we can enhance how we're moving in everyday life.
For sure, for sure. And when it comes to yourself, where do you find that amount of time that's ideal for the specific workout that you're having in place and also the warm up itself? Because I think that's important to note too. How much time people are spending on warming up compared to actually working out too.
Yeah, it's interesting because I used to do, I've been doing mobility for so long, and I used to do, maybe sometimes an hour a day broken down throughout the day. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm just trying to do like the minimum effective amount. Like I'll do, every hour I'm sitting, I'm gonna do a little bit of mobility here and there. And days when my body feels like I need it, like when I wake up, I'll do some cat cows, I'll do some, some hip hinges. I'll just kind of get the energy moving. Not necessarily have because I'm waking up with any stiffness or discomfort, but I find after it's been such an ingrained habit for so long, my body just feels off when I'm not getting that mobility in the morning. So I think like after you put in the reps and you develop that consistency that we're talking about, it gets a lot easier to really stick to the habit. But more so specifically like in terms of the warm up, I feel like you can do a good job in like 4 or 5 exercises really. But the thing is it's not so much people need to focus on how many reps they're doing, but it's about, doing the right exercises for their body, paying attention to the response they're getting. For example, like if you're doing, say, like some shoulder, rotations, and after five, the range is starting to feel better. All right, good. You've got that. You can move on to the next thing instead of like overdoing it and pre-fatiguing the body. So I think it's a bit of, trial and error, and also just seeing if it's helped your performance.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's definitely a great approach to it because when you think about it, individuals are sleeping on average around a quarter to a third of their day. So, getting into that flow of movement as soon as you get out of that stationary position that you've been in for usually on average a quarter to a third of your day is extremely important. Getting everything moving, getting your joints, fluid, making sure that you're having the success and the amount of time needed to set yourself for the rest of the day, and also creating those positive interactions, whether that be through your lifts, your everyday movement. It's a good starting point. Something that I know you're a big proponent of as well is just getting into using tools. So I wanted to just kind of ask specifically how you recommend utilizing them and which ones are the ones that you find to have the most benefit to you.
Yeah, so I think by that you mean like, foam rollers or yoga blocks and
For
resistance
sure.
bands. Like I really like them all. I would say like I don't use foam rolling as like a key tool with my clients. I use it more so as a prop, like a yoga block. Like we can use that to
Cool.
leverage different positions. Like one of my favorite things to do with the roller is to, put it on my upper back, put my hands behind my neck and just lean back, but I'm not just passively here. I'm trying to squeeze my upper back muscles,
Mhm.
pop my sternum up, and then I like to teach people how to, control the position of the rib cage while extending the thoracic spine. That's actually one of my favorite mobility drills. So not necessarily like you could go and you could do a few passes of rolling on there, but I find if we can use props, like when we're just on the floor and on the yoga mat, we're limited to, 180 degrees or whatever we have. But when we can use things to improve our mobility, like a wall, for example, putting your hands on the wall, open up the shoulders, it really unlocks a lot of different positions we can expose our body to so we become less vulnerable in those positions, and I really like that. And I use a lot with my coaching, like we'll use a lot of yoga blocks for the hips. We'll do different ways we can modify or we can expand range of motion to build some strength in. And I really like resistance bands too, because as opposed to just doing static stretching or some or body weight movement for mobility, we can make it more strength and goal oriented by, for example, using a resistance band to work on our spine rotation mobility, using a little bit of light resistance will help get more bang for our buck out there. But all these
Yeah.
things depend on the individual, how long they've been doing mobility. But I definitely think it's good to use some tools if we're using them appropriately.
For sure, for sure. They're tools of the trade, but that doesn't mean that they're an end all be all. And I think that's an important thing to note. When it comes down to it, I'm a no stranger to a door frame. That's something I personally love, to get that extra additional movement out of there, just because of the fact that it allows me to guide myself in certain positions as well, too, alongside using a wall. So I think, you're touching upon a lot of really important things there. And I think, when it comes down to it, that basically, all of these things that you're utilizing are for every part of the fitness journey as a whole. And, when it comes down to it, you're no stranger to working with individuals who are at the beginning of their stages all the way through, advanced levels, athletes, professionals. So I'd love for you to just kind of, touch upon who you like to work with, who you are involved with, and how that impacts you, because I know that you're specifically one of those individuals who loves making those connections, and also being able to tailor that specifically to how it's going to benefit the partner that you're with.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to backtrack before I get into that. I know we were talking about tools. I totally forgot to mention, Deskbound Therapy, the chair is my favorite tool, actually. Like, we use that in all of our programs with all of our clients.
Of
Like,
course.
there's like so many exercises we've developed on the chair, and I can't believe I forgot about it. But definitely, just any mobility drill you see, there's gonna be a way we can make a version you can stay active at the desk, which is really awesome. But yeah, in terms of the people we work with, like, I'm really passionate about helping, active desk-bound adults who are lifting, or they're into yoga or running or calisthenics, who are trying to be more active, but they find their desk job has made them, stiffer over the years, harder to get their joints loose, aches and pains, waking up stiff in the morning. So we help them, we start really holistically. Like, I help them figure out where their mobility issues are coming from, figure out whether, something in their lifestyle is contributing to it, such as, stress, or sometimes the workouts they're doing can really, lead to these poor muscular imbalances. So we really take that global approach, find ways we can integrate it into their lifestyle, find ways that we can, enhance their training in the gym. So we're gonna, depending on, as I said, depending on the individual, but we all like to be very goal oriented and very specific. Like, we like to look at, let's build a good foundation of mobility. Let's make it specific for what you're doing. Let's find a way we can maintain, what you're doing. Because it's really, there's so much out there in terms of mobility, and there's so many different systems. But I really like to focus on my clients, like really understanding what their goal is, what movements they want to be able to do. And, there's cases where people really, a lot of it, we have to educate our clients, this is what the joints are designed to do. So that way, we're at their gym, when they're at the gym and they're training, now that we have that newfound knowledge, it allows us to integrate into the body, into the system. Because I find one of the biggest mistakes people make with their training is, or mobility in general, is they're not training through their full range of motion. So, what's the
Mhm.
point of wanting to improve your mobility if we're not training with our full range of motion in the gym? Like, if you have that mobility, and we've been working on getting you really nice and deep in that squat, let's use that to really build some mobility, some control in the joints, let's strengthen the tendons. So it's not so like, you know, as I said earlier, like, don't just do static stretching, but we're finding ways we can incorporate into people's current, training and current lifestyle. Because if we're not, using what we're working on, we're just going to lose it. And then by making it more part of the lifestyle, it's just like, wow, like, I'm getting so mobile, but it's because we're doing the right steps. Versus, like, in the past, like I said, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I would just foam roll and do stat and do yoga and call it a day.
Hey, my name is Ian, and I've been working with David for about 2 months now. I initially came to him for some hip pain in my front groin, and then some back pain in my shoulders, in the back shoulders, and the mid back. Since working with him, I've noticed a decrease in pain overall. In those two areas, I have noticed a better control of my shoulders, my scapulas in particular. Some really targeted growth there. Complete elimination in my groin area, increased mobility there. So what I noticed most and like about David is he designed something based upon feedback that I provide and what he notices in our one-on-one sessions. So I highly recommend working with him and giving him a shot.
For sure, for sure. And that definitely makes sense in terms of how you attribute yourself and how you're, portraying your different goals respectively. What I wanted to ask though were, what were some of the biggest differences in mobility that you see amongst your clients that are in the athletic pursuit? So, meaning those in the gymnastics versus the powerlifting route. How do you train them differently?
Yeah, it's interesting because, we have to make sure we first have clear goals because I find, you can't be a power lifter who wants to, also be flexible like a gymnast because that's a mistake I made because we have to realize that, the spine we have to have mobility as well as stability. So we have to, if we're more specific on the goal, we can be more specific in the mobility. So the main priority for a power lifter would be, getting good ankle mobility, good hip mobility, getting good hamstring mobility, getting them strong in those positions for, the shoulders, like the squat, the bench, and the deadlift, making sure we have, full range of motion in those positions, as well as like a mobile spine. But stability is going to be a huge key there too. Like for a power lift, for example, I would do more mobility with a big focus on, core stability, core control, slow controlled movements like going slower and controller and building strength in the tendons and stuff. And then, I'm sure there'd be a few other things in terms of just like everyday movement, making sure but the key is going to be focused on, getting strong in those positions and then expanding our movement variability so we're able to move. And so we're not just, a stiff power lifter, but we're able to move and, have the functions of everyday demands of life. And
Mhm.
then someone who's more into, let's say yoga or calisthenics or just general functional fitness, I would say that's when we can make the workouts more mobility oriented specific as the goal, like making sure we're choosing exercises that are going to allow the client to work through their full range of motion or that's going to challenge some of their difficulties. So that could be, instead of doing a deadlift, it could be, a deadlift into a movement that involves some sort of, extra mobility in the spine, for example, or it can find ways that we can, you know, incorporate mobility into their specific training. So it's interesting. Like for, I think the big thing is like the big picture is mobility has to be specific, or it's not going to work. Like we really have to understand the
Sure.
movements we want to be working on, because you don't want to be working on your splits and your back bend and your squat all at the same time. I find, when you do that, it takes a lot longer to see, results overall. So we can just, focus on one thing at a time, get good at that instead of being like, I have a little bit of mobility here, here, and here. And that's why I like to break it up into, into phases. Like let's build the foundation, let's integrate that, and let's work on some more advanced stuff. But it's not to say like you can't go and still do, some static stretching at the end of our workout, but we're going to find ways that we can actually, get the mobility and the flexibility during our workout as well, which is really cool.
No, that's amazing to hear. Just because of the fact that you got to walk before you can run, but at the same time, you also have to accommodate those foundations that you're building now to your lifestyle and to the way that you want to portray your fitness goals. I think that's always important there. So, as someone who is just starting out, I'd love for you to touch upon where mobility, in your personal opinion, has made the biggest impact in terms of some of the injuries that you've had. Some of those injuries, respectively, are why you started off your career. So I'd love for you to just kind of touch upon those and really just make a full, complete picture of how this can be, utilized in any aspect of the, fitness journey.
Yeah, it's honestly interesting. Like looking back, all the injuries I've had have been really important, lessons and tools. And, one of the injuries in my neck I'll get into in a little bit was one of the reasons I did quit my job programming because, it was terrible pain and I didn't want to be at the desk any longer. But in terms of like the injuries, like it all started like I was making the best progress in my life. I was like deadlifting, 375. I could do bar muscle ups for, sets of 10. I was just, I was young and I was going hard and I was making the best progress in my life. And I wouldn't say I was overtraining, but I was definitely, didn't work on my mobility and was under recovering because we have to also consider the fact that, while I was making this big progress, there was also a lot of other stress in my life with, being in, first year of university that I didn't realize played an effect and role in terms of my recovery. So I had, as I said, I had a knee injury, I had a shoulder injury, kind of all around the same time. And that really like took a toll on my mental health. I was like, wow, I was like the strongest guy in the gym, and now I'm going to physio and doing some banded knee extensions. So it was tough, but I did learn a lot. Like one thing I learned was, you know, the issues with my knee were coming from the fact that I never trained my ankle mobility in my
Mhm.
entire life. And the issue with my shoulder was, my rotator cuff was weak and I didn't really know that much about how posture played a role in shoulder mobility. So a lot of these things have taught me so much about different ways I'm able to help people. Like I've had other small things, like when I was working at my desk, I think I had like a little bit of an irritated nerve in my neck, and it was just driving me bonkers, man. It was like tingling down my back all day, and I was like, it's enough. I gotta, take a step back and take care of my body, because I can't imagine how many other, desk bound lifters are out there. A lot of people work desk jobs.
Sure.
It's been quite a journey. I would say I think we've been doing Deskbound Therapy for about 7 years now, and it's
Yeah.
it's crazy to think, like, I just think that you have to, as I said earlier, understand that it's okay if it takes a little bit longer to get to the goal, because we want to build up the body, we don't want to tear it down. So I take more of a conservative approach now. Like, I don't go to the gym every day saying I'm gonna go 100%. Like, I'm content with, like, I'm gonna do, maybe I'm just gonna give 80%, because I realize that I don't have to always give 100% to still be making progress. Like, progress itself can be being able to just train pain free, being able to, make it through the workday without any pain or discomfort. But, there's a lot of, definitely a lot of mistakes I made, but there's so much we can learn from them.
That's amazing to hear, just because of the fact that I think everyone's not as candid as you are when it comes down to it. They just always want to talk about the positives. They always want to talk about the highs. There are lows in a fitness journey, and I think it's important to acknowledge those, but at the same time, understand how to tackle those issues. And I think that's something you do directly. And I think there is a lot of, improvement that can be done in the space where individuals can be focusing on themselves, but not also burning themselves out. And I think that's something that individuals are no stranger to in a desk-bound therapy setting, whether it be through the professional side of work burnout or even the actual fitness side of burnout where you get that injury. And I think you're setting foundations for individuals to, one, better understand how they can treat themselves better, to really build up a community and sense of understanding and alignment that you're making progress along the way. And that's the important part. And three, I think that there's really a lot of value in the fact that you are building foundations for a lifestyle rather than just specific goals based around fitness. And that in and of itself speaks volumes as to who you are as a person. And when it comes down to it, David, you're one of my most trusted individuals in terms of how I am going to get the most impactful results for, my personal fitness. And on top of that, just being able to share your plethora of knowledge with other individuals. You are that individual who is always wanting to best themselves and best the community around you. And it shows. So, I really appreciate you being so honest about, how you've explained and expressed your growth throughout, your fitness journey too. And I think that's important to note as well.
Yeah, it definitely brings up some old emotions, even just thinking about it, because especially when you're young and it's your first injury, it's like it can be a tough battle. Even when you're older, like, it's harder to recover. But if we can, I've realized so much that if we can just prepare the body better, but also learn to listen to our body, like, a lot of injuries can be taken care of before they're full blown things that are gonna take you out for months. Like, I know what I had, like, one of my old shoulder things was bugging me the last month, and then I realized that was the same shoulder that I injured like 8 years ago. So I just looked back and I started, doing some of the movements that I was doing back then, and and sometimes that's the lesson, is you just have to keep up some of that preventative work. And then after that injury, you're gonna know, like, okay, my this is bugging me. I have the tools. I've been through this. I know what I need to do to take care of myself long term. And I really think that's, where it becomes more than just mobility, but it's enhancing our quality of life.
And, when it comes down to it, you're always that open book and that individual who's always willing to address things from your community, from, your respective social media, presence. And I think it's important, don't be a stranger to David. That's something that he is really, really, open and willing to communicate about any part of the fitness journey. So if you're that type of individual who feels like they need to, create more lifestyle habits, be able to, address your fitness journey and also your actual professional journey at the same time, don't hesitate to reach out. He is an open book, and he is that person that I love having a conversation with. And through and through, he's always going to lead you on the right track. So whether that be, through, different programs, whether that be through standard, mobility practice and training that he's sharing on a regular basis, David is that kind of person that wants to empower everyone around him. So, I look forward to, more of these sessions too, and really just getting into the nitty gritty of how you're developing as one, a professional, and two, as someone who started off their journey outside of the space.
Yeah, for sure. And we actually just relaunched our new iteration of our online mobility program. It is called the Deskbound Therapy Mobility Mastery Program, and we've just completely, redone our website and our online platform for our clients. We got a ton of new, videos and resources, and it's definitely exciting. We do have 5 spots open for the January cohort. We're only taking 5 people this month, and we have a few already full. So, send me a message on Instagram at Deskbound Therapy, or down below in the show notes, there is a link to learn more about the Mobility Mastery Program. We would love, to have you join us. It's a really great program. We're gonna, figure out what's going on with your body. We're gonna give you, concrete steps to take every day. Starting off 5-10 minutes and really just getting you consistent, and we're gonna get you moving great, and we're gonna be keeping each other accountable. Like, we have a group, a Facebook group. Pierce and I are in there supporting all the other students on their mobility endeavors, and we built up such an amazing community. I'm sure you could speak on that. The group we have now is just amazing, and the results we've been getting from the support group, I find, one-on-one coaching is amazing, but now that we've enhanced, what we're able to offer in terms of the group support, like, everyone's so encouraged.
Without a doubt. I mean, when it comes down to it, there's individuals all over North America coming in through different parts of the world now. It's amazing to see that individuals, whether they are, sitting in Florida, ranging all the way over to, for example, British Columbia and Vancouver, they're literally, that far in range. And it's amazing to see that everyone is looking for communal goals, but at the same time, looking for that accountability. And I think that really is the key there on how, individuals can level up their fitness journey, and it's through community. And that's something you're always willing to share. And without a doubt, I think it's part of the foundation of who you are as a person. You're that person that's always willing to share with others.
Yeah, this was a really great episode. Definitely don't hesitate to reach out. Everything will be in the show notes below. And if you did enjoy this episode, there's also a link in the show notes to leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. It would really, really help us get the message out there and continue to help grow the Deskbound Therapy community. This is coming out very soon. It's going to be the second week of January when we hear this. So thank you so much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget, got to stay flexible.